Hey, April, pass it on to you.
Cool, thank you, Michelle. Happy to be back. Let me get my screen share going here. Just 1 second, get some stuff moved over. Whoops, come on, computer. Here we go. All right, so today I'm going to talk about how we can build Teams applications the low-code way. So what we're going to cover, we're going to talk about options for Teams app dev. So I'm going to go through some of the full code to the low-code options. We're going to discuss a little bit why approach it with a low-code approach. We'll talk about the available low-code tools in the Teams app dev landscape, and of course, we'll show some demos. Just a little bit about me. I run the Power Platform Advocacy team here at Microsoft. You can reach out to me if you have any questions that we don't get to today for any reason on Twitter, LinkedIn, my blog. I also have a YouTube channel that Michelle basically shared earlier, so thank you for sharing that. So that's how you can get in touch with me if you have any questions. And let me see if I can get that to stop showing. There we go. All right, so Teams as an application platform. So we all probably use Teams in our day-to-day. So there's a lot that we can do with it, right? We know we can have meetings like we're having now, we can have chats, calling, and all of that. But it's really at the heart of it an application platform. And there's many different ways that we can build apps on top of Teams, all the way from full code applications as you're seeing below. So we can use these for departmental tools, employee resources, processes and workflows, and support and information, all the way to ready-made applications that you're seeing at the top here that we can plug and play our Office suites, streams, and hundreds of other partner applications that we have to plug and play. But then the sweet spot here that I'm going to be talking about today is this middle section, how we can build our own custom applications in Teams, but using low-code apps and workflows with the Power Platform. So we have the ability with the native integration inside of Teams to be able to build applications, workflows, add dashboards and reportings, and even bots inside of Teams using a low-code approach. So we do that with the Power Platform. So this is an example of what we can do with using the Power Platform inside of Teams. So everything from creating custom apps with Power Apps to creating automate intelligent workflows with Power Automate, to building low-code chatbots with Power Virtual Agents, and adding in visualization data and insights with Power BI. So with that, just move it here. So what's the benefit, though, of using Power Platform for this? Well, I'm sorry, there we go, finally went away. That was really bugging me there. Well, with Teams, so we can build Power Platform applications outside of Teams, right? And I'm sure we've all probably dabbled with it a little bit on this call. But if we want to really scale the applications, or if the applications are really meant to be used and consumed within Teams, we are able to take advantage of Teams' native extensibility of being able to kind of have a team that is company-wide or specific to your department, and add that in with our Power Platform application so that we can take a solution, package it up nicely, and install it with a single click inside of the Teams App Store, taking advantage of that. But the other benefit of using the Power Platform to build applications in Teams is the built-in security and administration that we get natively with Teams. So we can do things like identify trends and usage of the applications we're building, and we can drive solution adoption with custom policies and even have user-level access with some of the native Teams functionality that we have. Now, moving along, so how is this possible? Well, it's through something called Dataverse for Teams. So I don't know if you can do a virtual show of hands, how many of you have utilized or even know what Dataverse for Teams is. But really what it is why it's not called Power Platform for Teams, is its goal is to give us a lighter weight version of Dataverse, which is the data platform that the Power Platform is based off of to build applications inside of Teams. So why is this important? Well, it all kind of comes down in one aspect to licensing. So our favorite subject to talk about. Now with licensing in the Power Platform, we get a seated, so we call seated license, that's included in our Microsoft 365 licensing. This allows us to basically extend the Microsoft 365 stack with Power Platform. So if we needed to create a custom form in our SharePoint list, for example, we can do that with Power Apps. Or if we needed to automate stuff in our Microsoft Teams instances, in our SharePoint document libraries, maybe create approvals, we can use Power Automate for that with the seated license. But with that seated license, it's really restricted to being really from an app perspective. When we're talking about Power Apps, being able to use SharePoint or Excel as a data source, or some of the non-premium data sources. We couldn't take advantage of Dataverse with that license. We had to pay for another license. Now, why would we want to take advantage of Dataverse instead of just putting everything that we have on a SharePoint list? Well, SharePoint has its use cases for some simple applications, but at its heart, it's not a relational database. So if you need to have data that has a lot of files and image complex field types, maybe lookups and relationships, Dataverse is going to be more suited for that type of data. It's going to be a little bit more scalable. So that's where this really fits in. So what do we get with this Dataverse for Teams? Well, included at no additional cost, as you're seeing here, we're able to get a Dataverse instance per team that can support up to 1 million records for each team out of the box. So this allows us to build those Power Apps, applications, chatbots, Power Automate workflows, all embedded within Teams. So that is the big gotcha with this, is the solutions that we build within Dataverse for Teams can only be consumed inside of Teams. So if you need to build a solution that's going to be maybe embedded in the SharePoint side or something like that, this wouldn't be the approach you would take. You would build it the traditional way and just integrate it within Teams if you need that. But one of the other benefits too that I always like to point out is the extensibility of this. So with Dataverse for Teams, we also get the ability to surface up APIs using Azure API management within our Teams applications. Again, this is something that traditionally would cost premium licensing to be able to integrate with Azure API management. But when building applications through Teams like this, we get to do that at no additional cost. And the other big benefit is when we talk about building apps, oftentimes we might start small and then iterate on our application. It might grow and expand over time. So if we build an application like this in Dataverse for Teams and maybe say we hit this 1 million records limit, we're using the application a lot and we need to expand it, there's a good upgrade path here to upgrade the application to the full standalone version of Dataverse quite easily, so you can take advantage of all of its enterprise capabilities like role-based access, extensible business logic, and offline support and all of that. So it has a really good story for being able to upgrade these solutions. So key takeaways just from why low code and Teams stuff. Well, Teams is a mature platform. We are able to have that native integration. We have IT admins can be in control because of the combination of the security we already have within the Power Platform on top of the Teams security features. And it's easy to get started, which we'll see today. Now, just to get your mind going on all the possibilities of the types of applications that we can build for Teams with the Power Platform, it's really for any department. So this could be things like marketing to be able to receive customer feedback, and it can be all the way to first-line worker scenarios to track repairs that are needed on site. So many possibilities, as you're seeing here, for the types of solutions that we can build. But now let's dive into some of the specifics here. So this is an example of what the Dataverse for Teams instance will look like. So it might look, if we all come from like a SharePoint background here or use SharePoint like I do, it looks actually very similar to a modern SharePoint list implementation of building a Dataverse table, in this case, to store our data. So we have all of these rich, typical enterprise capabilities within Dataverse. So when I talk about that, I mean different data types like text. And one of the things that I really like about Dataverse over, say, maybe a SharePoint list as a database is some of the integrated field types. Like you notice here, we have an email and a phone field. This is something that we don't have natively really in our SharePoint list. And if we wanted to be able to build an application that maybe forced a valid phone number to be entered or a valid email address and Power Apps, we would have to kind of code in that logic on the front end to be able to do that validation. But by leveraging Dataverse for Teams, we have fields built in that handle that logic for us. So just one less step that we have to do in our applications. It's just handled by the data store in this case. And then all the way up from lookup, so we can have that relational information, so like a parent-child, like a customer, and a product in that case, whatever it might be. Choice, yes, no, all these different field types are supported. And I mentioned it's a relational database quite a bit. So what I mean by that is just makes it easy to establish lookups and relationships across any table. So all you have to do is to find a type of lookup and select the related table. And now we're able to access any related field in that table to establish that lookup. So this is an example of what it looks like when we're building, say, a Power App inside of Dataverse for Teams. Now, it's going to look, honestly, almost 99% similar to how we would build it in the standalone Canvas Apps, Power Apps application. It's going to, but the big benefit of it here is going to inherit the theme of Teams. So you don't have to worry about adding in fluent UI controls or the Teams theme and all of that to our application, because if we're building it this way through Dataverse for Teams and the Power Apps application, it handles the themes and the styling for us. So everything else is going to be the same. We're going to be able to use PowerFX to have those Excel-like formulas and expressions to do our logic in the application. And we're going to have that PowerPoint-esque drag and drop functionality to add in our controls and build out the front end. All right, so I did a lot of talking. Let's take a look at how Power Apps works inside of Teams here. So how do we get started with this? Well, if you open up Teams, we're going to go to our apps in the bottom left-hand side here. And all we have to do is search for Power Apps. So each of the Power Platform applications are going to have a Teams application that we can use. So I'm going to click on that, and if you haven't installed it already, you're just going to click Add. In this case, I have, so I'm going to open up the Power Apps application for Teams. And now when we build this, one of the things I want to point out, which I'll touch on more later, is on this landing screen that you'll see, we have all of these applications that are templates specifically for Dataverse for Teams. Now, one of the things I like about these is if you go to, say, make.powerapps.com, for example, you'll notice that some of the templates that are out there aren't necessarily kept up to date, but these Dataverse for Teams templates are pretty new and kept up to date really well. And it has some quick tips for how to learn, some learning paths and stuff, which I'll share later on. So how do we get started though? So if you notice here, we have a build tab. So this is really important, and I want to show how this works because it might not be the most intuitive way to build an application. So if you are just getting started with Power Apps and Dataverse for Teams, and you've never built anything inside of a particular team, then this section here is going to be blank. So what has to happen is when you initially build an application here, behind the scenes is going to provision a Power Platform environment associated to the team. So everything that we build in Dataverse for Teams is tied to an individual team. So I'm trying to remember which one that I have not built a solution for to show you. But if you want to get data populated here, you need to first start with creating a new blank application. So once you do that, and I'm not going to go through it because it can take a little bit to process since it's creating that environment, but that will create a new Canvas app. So what I'm going to do is we go to the help desk. I'm going to show you an example of an app that I've already built. So once we have applications built on this build tab, you'll see 3 different sections. So we're going to have built by this team. We're going to have installed apps, which those are, if you're using those templates on the homepage, they're going to show here. And then we're going to have data flows. So this is pretty exciting new functionality. So in the full version of Dataverse, we have a concept of data flows to move data in and out of Dataverse. We can actually do that now in preview with Dataverse for Teams as well. So if we needed to sync data from Excel, from SharePoint, from SQL, whatever it might be, we can leverage those data flows inside of Dataverse for Teams. What I want to focus on here is this built by this team tab. So anything that we create here inside of Dataverse for Teams is going to show. So you'll notice that even though I'm in the Power Apps application for Teams, I don't see just Canvas applications. I see a chatbot as well, and I see tables. So everything that we create, Power Platform related, can actually show up here in this build tab. But the important thing is to see all, because right now, if I'm looking at this, I'm kind of wondering, well, how do I really administer all of this and know what's going on? Well, we need to click this See All button in the left-hand side, and that will take us to a more helpful screen to kind of manage all the Power Platform capabilities and things that we have here in this particular team. So now when I click that, you see we can organize it by just seeing the applications that we have in Power Apps. We can filter it by chatbots, cloud flows, and then the tables. So focusing a bit here now on tables, this is the lightweight version of Dataverse that we get, like I mentioned. And now, before I move on, we don't have to use just Dataverse to use Dataverse for Teams. We could theoretically create a Dataverse for Teams application that only consumes data from SharePoint still, if we wanted to really just take advantage of the built-in look and feel and native integration with Teams. Doesn't mean we have to use this, just available to us. But if we take a look at, say, this asset table, we can see all the columns listed here. And my computer's being a bit slow today, so bear with me, hopefully, as things load up pretty fast. We can see all the different column types that I have. And then if we click edit data, this is kind of the new integrated experience to be able to quickly enter in data for our underlying tables. So I have a grid similar to, again, like a modern SharePoint list if I have it in the edit grid view. And I can add data in here. And you see one of the fields that I have here is a lookup. So I have different categories, and if I click on that, that's a relationship to another table that I have for asset categories, where I can tag with a different category. So if I go back and look, for example, at our tables again, here's that asset category list, and I can see all the different column types here. So a perfect example of tables with relational databases. So just like SharePoint, we can have our columns. Here are relationships we have built in, and then we can have specific views of data as well. Now, once we have that data structure, we can go take a look at what an application looks like. So here's our home office setup app. So what we can do is just go click on the three dots and edit, similar to what we would do in the standalone Power Apps portal. And we'll open this up here. And let's see, I have some questions in the chat already, so that's loading. Let's see if I can address some of these. So first one I see, is there a way to govern or control environments that get created in Teams? Yes, so all of the environments, if we go to admin.powerplatform.com, all the Dataverse for Teams environments show up here in the Power Platform Admin Center as well. So the same capability that we have to govern and administer the full environments that we have with the full version of Dataverse for Teams, we have with Teams. So you can see if I go to the Admin Center and click on the Environments tab, we can filter by type. So it tells us if this environment is a developer environment, the default environment, or if it's a Microsoft Teams environment. So everything that I can do with the normal environments, I can do here. So I can click on our help desk environment, for example, and I can either upgrade it. So if I could actually take a Dataverse for Teams environment and upgrade it to a full version of Dataverse if I want to. And I can do backups, so we can create and restore. We can see history, all the stuff that we're used to here, and resources, the Power Apps and flows, and configure all the settings and all of that. So yeah, we have everything we can do with normal Dataverse. We can do with Dataverse for Teams from an environment perspective. All right, so this application open here, and so this is an example of what it will look like building an app. You'll notice just a few slight differences here, and the look and feel, mostly in the toolbar at the top. So you'll see we have a native publish to Teams button built in here that we can look at here, but overall it's really very similar. Now, the only important part is what you'll notice if you take a look, say, at all the templates that are built, is because this is within Teams, the apps that we build within Dataverse Teams really need to be responsive by default. So that's why you'll notice if you take a look at what I built here, I'm utilizing containers. This is something that I wanted to make sure to point out when you're considering building Power Apps applications with Society Dataverse for Teams, is to make sure that you're utilizing these containers, because that's what enables us to have a true responsive application. And if we look at the screen view here, you see that we actually have some built-in responsive templates. So that's why a lot of the samples that you'll see in the applications built in Dataverse for Teams kind of follow a similar pattern as maybe like a gallery on the left-hand side and a form on the right, is because that supports some of the native templates for responsive design that we have built in. So we have a split screen option. The sidebar is probably the most common option that you'll see. It's what we're using in this application. And then the header, main section, and footer. So what this does is it gives us a container that we can put in individual objects. So in this case, I have a gallery in this container where it shows all the requests that I have, and I have the ability to submit a new request. So really nothing unique to how I built this app versus how I would build it in the standalone version of Power Apps. But if we go to use this application now, So I'm going to go back to Teams and we'll just see the experience. So I have two main options. I can add that as a tab. So if we look here, we have like issues, Power Automate, or I could go to apps and we could add that here into the App Store. So you see you have built for your org. So any applications that I build and publish through Power Apps, or if it's a chatbot or whatever it might be, will show up here in this built for your org. So I can simply go and browse the applications I built, like say this Profile Plus, and I can go and add that to a team natively. So I can search for the team I want to add that to, like possibly this training team, set up a tab, and it's an easy one-click install experience to get started with this application in that instance. So it's going to pop up this message here. We're going to save, and that will go and add that into the particular channel that I chose, and we can start using it. So see, behind the scenes, it's kind of installing the application, doing some configuration and all that. And while that's kind of loading, let's see if there's more question.
Yeah, there's a top question about where is the metadata stored?
So Dataverse, inside of Dataverse. So in the environment that gets created back in the admin center, so all the metadata about the apps and everything are stored in Dataverse. So even if you're not using Dataverse as like the storage mechanism, say for the app you're building, the information about the application or the flows and stuff that you're building is still going to be stored inside of Dataverse.
Right. I think there's some governance questions too around securing the creation by having governance over your environments. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I saw that. It's a good question. So we can do that, and actually, there's some good community templates out there as well for handling governing that. So I think the Center of Excellence toolkit actually has a mechanism built in to where if you create a Dataverse for Teams environment, there's a process that goes on behind the scenes and notifies someone about that and has you submit a reason for why you need that environment, and runs that through some validation via Power Automate to just kind of make sure that that is a valid environment. It's not like a duplicate thing, and then can go through and run through the approval process. I want to see, so if we go to AK8MS/Power Platform, there's samples. This is our sample browser for all Power Platform. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, hopefully it's on here somewhere, that there was actually a template for that. I'm not sure she made it. I know it's Louise Fries from the community built a template kind of with that in mind, how to govern the creation of Dataverse for Teams environments. And I think it might be on her personal repo because I'm not seeing it here, but I will track that down too, because that's kind of a good resource to show the process behind the scenes of how that could work. All right, so looks like this is about done here. Hopefully that'll be installing.
And I guess I'll go ahead and I'll find Luis's link to it, throw it in the chat. I don't know if Ernesto, Jason, if you had anything more to add on your questions.
On my end.
Cool. And yeah, for the COE stuff too, they released a version of the COE toolkit specifically for Dataverse for Teams as well, which I don't have that link handy, but again, I can find that for sure after I'm done talking here and put that in the chat. But what I wanted to show with this application is just how easy it is to install one of these apps. So in this case, it's a template application that I find really interesting, Profile Plus. And what I like about this is it kind of goes beyond the typical scenario of what you saw with the app, where it just has the gallery on the right and then the form on the right there. And it kind of shows how you can create a little bit of a sleeker design. So this is kind of an org browser built natively inside of Teams. So I can see everyone on my team. I can click, say, on David, for example, and I can see information about him, who he reports up to. I can quickly have a call. I can schedule a meeting. So this template in particular shows some of the integrations baked in that we can establish. So this scheduling a meeting will actually go and open up Outlook so I can schedule a meeting quickly. I can see goals and interests. And if I go back to, say, myself, because I have some reports, I can even see how many people report to me, and I can see as a person if I can manage my own profile through this as well, There are all my direct reports, and I can edit my profile quickly to add a bio, add my LinkedIn profile, projects I'm working on, my goals, interests, and even use it as a mechanism to post open positions. So all this baked into the template. And to me, if you're looking to get started with data virtual teams, these template applications are the best way to learn. Oftentimes, some of them can be fairly complex, like this one with lots of tabs and things going on, integrations, but it's just a great way to learn some of the back end, behind the scenes things of how to style these and how to add in some integrations. Now, I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to move on to some of the other integrations, so particularly Power Automate for Teams. So oftentimes when we're talking about data virtual teams, I think the focus tends to be on the Power Apps side of things, but there are so many other integrations I want to make sure that you're aware of that we can take advantage of, and namely that with Power Automate. So we have the same experience that we have in the native Power Automate browser, we can do inside of Teams. But what this gives us is a more fine-tuned, integrated experience to give you templates and suggestions for extending and adding in business processes into Teams specifically. So we have several built-in templates that allow us to do some automations that are Teams related. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of these slides here because I want to get straight to the demo on this one too. But all the stuff that we can do within Power Automate, we can do within the Dataverse for Teams Power Automate application. So let's switch back to the demo in this case. And now to do this, we're going to go back to our Apps tab, and we're going to do a search for Power Automate this time because it has its own standalone application. So we're going to open that up, and we'll see what it looks like. So the home page here, now we can use this to obviously create flows related to Teams, but we could use this to create flows outside of that too. So we can just go to this application instead of having to go to flow.microsoft.com. Now it's obviously geared towards helping you automate stuff in Teams because you'll notice on this drop down here, it's filtered by only flows related to Microsoft Teams. But if I click all flows, I can see everything that I have in there across all of my environments and all that. But I'm going to keep it filtered to my Teams flows. And we're going to scroll down here and look at some of the templates because this is the kind of easiest way to get started. And honestly, I don't think I've hardly ever created one from scratch because usually some of the automations I'm wanting to do within Teams are already a template. So one of the ones that I personally love are these two, follow up on a message and schedule a reply. Because I don't know about you, but I get so many Teams messages every day that it's super hard to keep up. And I wish there was just a way to like click a button and say, remind me to follow up on that so I don't forget. Otherwise, it's going to get buried and I'll just completely forget about it. So the one that I love is this follow up on a message. So if you click on the template, I'm going to give this a name. I think I already created this, so I'm just going to say V3. We're going to create the flow and I'll show you what this will do. So this has native integrations via messaging extensions and adaptive cards with Teams. So I see that with the native experience, the workflow is added. So now I can click on the more options next to any message, and it's going to allow me to configure a reminder to follow up on that. So if I go to my chat tab now, and maybe this, we'll just use this as an example here. So pretend this is someone actually asking me a question in this case. So I'm going to click on the three dots, and you'll notice that we have a more actions option here. And when I do that, these are all of the flows that I've created specific for Teams that are message actions. So I can see this follow up on a message V3, which is the one we just created. And now if I click that, it's going to post open an adaptive card for me to input some information. So I can choose the date that I want to be reminded about this. So maybe tomorrow, I'm busy today, and even the time. So maybe remind me tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then a quick note for the reminder. So follow up about this HR question. And I submit that, and that's going to go, and behind the scenes is going to delay for that amount of time. And it's going to pop a notification up here for tomorrow, letting me know that I was asked to follow up on this particular message. So lots of great integrations like that built in. Now, if I go back to the Power Automate app, I want to show you one more. We're going to open that. Now, again, we don't have to use the templates. We can create a new flow here and do anything we want to. So again, it's going to try to suggest that we use a template, but we can create from blank as well. And if we do, we can see if we search for Teams in this case, because usually we're wanting to maybe kick something off from Teams, we can see all the triggers that we have for the context of Teams. So I could kick something off maybe when a channel message is added. I could kick something off when I'm mentioned in particular. So maybe if I'm out of office and I'm mentioned in something, I want to do an auto reply in Teams that I'm out and I'll reply when I get back, right? We could use that trigger for something like that. And even when keywords are mentioned. So if I want to make sure that I get notifications anytime someone mentions Power Apps, I can use this keyword feature. And then we talked about, how can we do like governance and stuff? Well, how do we do governance of Teams itself, right? How do we make sure that people who are added to a team receive a welcome message? Well, Power Automate is a great use case for that. So when a new team member is added, I can use this trigger, just associate it to a particular team, like our help desk team, and then click a new step, and I can simply go back to the Teams connector, and I could send a message. So we can. And then cool. And it looks like Michelle found some links to some of the government stuff that we're talking about. So that's great. And I can like post an adaptive card as a flow bot, or post a choice of options, or whatever it might be. You see all the different capabilities that we have with the native Teams integration inside of the Power Platform. So maybe we'll just do the choice of options because that's fun. So we could send that to the unique ID of the user that was added, and a message. We could say like, how are you liking this team so far? You're welcome for the headline. And then we can put text here in the options. So we can have some interaction here. We can say, I don't know yet. And then maybe not liking it. And save. And now that anytime anyone is added to that help desk team there, they're going to get this automated message. So lots of stuff we can do with some of this native integration. All right, so let's go back because we have even more to talk about. So that was a quick overview of some of the Power Automate integration, but what else is there? Where are those Power Virtual Agents? And this is one of the newest features of the Power Platform that was added not too long ago, actually. And I'm really excited about this one because one of the good use cases within Microsoft Teams is with chatbot integration. So what you just saw earlier, there was interacting with the Flowbot. So that's a native built-in chatbot specifically for Power Automate to post messages to a user. So that's just one use case of a bot inside of Teams. But when you think about it, Teams is a natural place to interact with a bot. And sometimes it's really the preferred mechanism to interact with an application is via a bot. So it really helps, for consistent internal communication is good for those like knowledge-based type questions, like maybe if you just need to check the status on a help desk ticket or an order or whatever it might be. So it might be much better to build that as a chatbot than having to go down the whole road of building an application for something. Or it could be a combination of you have an application and a chatbot for a holistic solution to give users the option of how they want to interact with your solution there. But with Power Virtual Agents, again, it's built right into Teams, has its own testing studio, and it has built-in natural conversational AI. So all we have to do is use a what you see is what you get kind of experience, very similar to how you would create a flow in Power Automate, honestly, to choose what would trigger this particular topic area. So like what would someone ask that would trigger a chain of events and responses, and build that out. So that's really how the core of how it works is we define different trigger phrases. And again, this uses natural conversational AI. So if I put in a trigger phrase of how do I get a desk for working at home, it can naturally assume and know different ways that someone might ask that. So with the conversational AI built in. So it can kind of capture what it's saying here is the intent of what it might ask. So instead, if I said, can I order a new chair, it would be able to glean, that's another thing of what they can mean by how can I order a desk. So the authoring canvas, again, very similar to Power Automate, we define the trigger phrases, and then we build out a series of messages or maybe even actions. And it has built-in testing too, which is really convenient. So before you publish the application, we can test the conversation and just make sure that it follows the path, and it has a checker built in, again, similar to sound like a broken record here to Power Automate, where it shows for each kind of nodule in the flow of the bot, if that succeeded or not. And we can connect that to Dataverse routines. So say if we needed to be able to pull information from a data source. So in the instance of I'm checking on order status, we might be storing the order information inside of Dataverse routines, and the status of that order would be in that table. We can actually integrate natively with Power Automate through our bot, have Power Automate go call our Dataverse routines table, return the information to our bot, and then pass that on to the user. All right, so with that, let's go back into a demo, kind of jumping back and forth here, but lots to cover. So for Power Virtual Agents, we're going to do a search this time for the Power Virtual Agents app and open that up and take a look at what it looks like. All right, and again, one of the things I love about all this is just the native built-in help documentation that's here. So really easy to get started. If we go to chatbots, just show you quickly, this is where all the bots that you create will show, and again, organized by teams. So we have a helpful link up here that shows all of your chatbots regardless of teams. And then you can filter in per team, like what chatbot. So for example, I think the help desk, I have at least one in here called the Office Helper. So if we just take a look at this Office Helper one, for example, we'll see what the authoring canvas looks like. So when we open this up, again, it's going to be organized by topics. So if we take a look at the Office Helper and scroll down here, seems like it's just taking a minute to load. There we go. Here's the Topics tab on the left-hand side. So when we create a bot from scratch, it actually has several built-in topics for us to use. So there's some things that any bot's going to need, like a greeting. So if you look at this greeting one, people might say, hello, good morning, good afternoon, how are you, can you help me, to the bot, any of these 52, in this case, phrases to greet the bot. And in this case, it just replies and it pulls in information about the user. So the bot is aware of the current logged in user that's interacting with its information. And it just posts back a message that it can help. And then it can go on to another topic. So it's able to track between topics. So I can say hello. It'll go through this whole conversation path here, but then I can say something else and it'll continue through that. So those were some of the out-of-the-box ones, like hello, goodbye, start over, all of that. But let's take a look at a custom one. So in this case, I have this request home office equipment topic. And what I did here is for the trigger phrases, if we go to edit, this is where we define them. So I can type in any particular phrase that I might think someone might ask. Like, can I put in a request? How do I put in an order? All of that. And that's all I have to do from the trigger phrase side of things. But now I want to send a quick message. So just let the user know that the request was received. So that's what I did there. But here you see how we can build out the conversation path is we can click the plus button to add what's called a node in this case. So what are the key things we can do? Well, we can show messages, which is what this above is doing. But we can also ask a question. So this allows us to basically post in inputs with either a choice of question or maybe even open-ended question to the user. But the thing that we're doing here is call an action. This is where we can have that Power Automate integration with Power Virtual Agents to perform an action. So we see in this case, I have two different Power Automate actions created to create a request and to get an asset. So that's what I did down here. I'm using the get an asset flow. And if we take a look at the flow details, that's actually going to open up the flow for me inside of the Power Virtual Agent bot. So I can edit this flow and see how it's working. So the trigger, there's a special trigger for Power Automate for Power Virtual Agent when a request is received for Power Virtual Agents. So that will kick off this flow. And it can accept different inputs. So in this case, we don't need any inputs. We just need to have some outputs, but we could pass those in if needed. So we're doing the integration here with our Dataverse routines instance. We're going to get rows from our assets table. We're going to get the first asset in that row with a nifty compose action. And then here below, this is how we return data back to our bot. So there's a return values to Power Virtual Agents action. We can define different outputs. So I want to return the asset name and the ID and just use our dynamic property inputs here to fill that information in. So that's really all there is from the integration needed there is that trigger and then the output there to return those values back. So if we go back to our bot, we can see that it is calling that, and it's going to take the outputs that Power Automate sends back and store those in variables. So variables gives us a way to, within the nodes of our bot and the conversation path, to store data that we might need to use. So it's going to store these in a variable called name and ID. And finally, it's going to just simply return back a message to the user. That's going to return back the asset name. And then it's going to do the ask a question. Now, this is the cool thing about when you're doing the ask a question node. So in this case, I'm defining a Boolean, so a yes or a no. So if they do want us to send the request for them, when you add a node like this with a Boolean value, it automatically adds the two conversation paths that it can diverge on. So if they say yes, then I want to check and make sure that the condition is true. And then I want to ask another question. So I need them to put in some comments about the request to fill in. And it's going to go call another Power Automate workflow to physically create the request. So this workflow is going to go and add data into Dataverse in this case. And it's going to send a message letting them know that it was submitted in the conversation. And then conversely, if they say no, it just goes straight to ending the topic. So it's very logical and simple and intuitive to use. So now if I just kind of walk through this, let's see how the testing works. So I'm going to type in a message. So that was one of our trigger phrases here. How do I put in an order? And the bot's going to respond. And you can see here how it walks me through everything that happened. So I can see that the trigger phrase kicked off properly. The message, the action got kicked off. So what it's doing is asking me, it's going to return the information for the order. And here's where it's asking me, would I like to have it submit a request? So if I say yes, in this case, it's going to go through that node there on the left. It's going to ask me for comments. I'm going to say I want a new chair. Put in my comments. It'll take the comments that I put in, pass it back, and now it's going to go follow through with that request, and the topic's in it. So it's really lets me know that the request for the chair has been submitted, and now I know that I'm good to go. And this can all tie in from a holistic solution perspective. If we go back to our teams and we go back to the help desk below here, and we'll take a look at, let's see, let's add in that Power App that we built that kind of ties into all this. Let's see. Let's actually go back to the Power Apps application so we can find that. So this office setup. So I'm going to go back here to the Home tab. We're going to go back to Build. And we'll go to our help desk. And we'll find the Office Setup application. And we'll make sure we publish this because I don't think I published it yet. So that's why it's not showing quite yet. And the data, the request should be here inside of this application. Oopsie. And before I got the nice little retry error, hopefully you saw that item populated there. Hopefully it'll load back up for me. All right, just bear with me. Let's try this one more time. Gotta love it, demos. Ah, yes, Provision Genie. That was the name of the solution that Louisa built there that I was trying to think of. Just saw that in the chat. Okay, so we see the new employee home office request there. So I'm just going to publish this to Teams so we can see what the published experience looks like since I haven't published this quite yet. So we can see the app icon and name. I can edit any of the details here. So if I wanted to add a description of the app, I could. We're just going to click Next. It's going to kind of walk us through the publishing process. All right, so now we got to choose if we want to add this to a channel. Which channel do we want to add it to? So I'm going to add it to the general channel by clicking the plus there, and we're going to save and close. And now this should be available for anyone in the team to use. So now if I go back to my Teams tab, there we go. We see the Home Office Setup application. And that's going to load the app. And now we can start using this application. You see if I kind of expand, whoops, there we go. I'm going to try to show like the responsiveness of it, but you get the point. Now I can submit a new request. I can see the request that I submitted. And so this is kind of just, again, giving the user multiple ways to do something. So if they wanted to, they could submit a new request via the Power App here. Otherwise, they could interact with a bot, all adding the data to the same underlying Dataverse for Teams instance there. And then the only other thing I really wanted to touch on here quickly is Power BI. So that's the other integration that we have. So there's a native Power BI application natively in Teams where we can have centralized place for dashboards and reports without having to leave Teams, which is very cool. So we can do a search within the Power BI application for any reports or dashboards that we want to find. And we can quickly even send those reports to colleagues. So if we are wanting to share Power BI reports in the context of a meeting or a chat, we can actually search through the Power BI application, find the report, and send that through a message. So again, we can send these in one-on-one chats, group chats, whatever it might be. And we can even embed these inside of Teams tabs. So if you have a report that your team needs to see on a regular basis, you can have that integrated as a Teams tab, and that will get updated automatically. Now, I briefly talked about sample apps here. I just want to touch on that one more time because we looked at the Profile Plus application, but I just want to stress again how important these sample apps are. Because really that's all goes down to the ability to customize in the timeline for realization here. So with Power Platform apps from scratch, we can do that, of course, but the time to realization is going to be higher that way. But if we use some of the built-in template applications, we can get started really quickly with the benefit, and they can be pretty customizable. So there's a few different templates that I wanted to point out here that are really easy to extend. So beyond what we just showed with the Profile Plus, we have asset inspection, area inspection, employee ideas, and issue reporting. Now, what I love about these is they're really applicable to multiple use cases. So for the inspection application, for example, it can be tailored to multiple use cases. It could be an inspection, like an auditing perspective. So you can kind of customize the application out of the box to apply to like maybe an audit of a computer system. It could be an inspection for anything you can imagine, whether you're inspecting an oil field or maybe you're inspecting a store. And then same thing conversely for the issue reporting. This can be modified to be anything from a help desk type application to reporting issues in the field, whatever it might be. And in this case, some of these solutions even have built-in mechanisms to easily modify and tweak the wording and the language of the application to customize it further. So just some of these ideas, so the ideas template, for example, is good for hackathon projects, product backlog, workplace safety. The issue reporting can be used for safety incidents, help desk, customer escalations, and the inspection could be anything from an asset checkout, check-in, machinery equipment to retail store walks. So lots of different use cases for these individual template applications. I already kind of did a demo. I did want to make sure that we had plenty of time and not try to cut into Heather's time too much here. So what are the next steps and resources here? So main resources, we have a Microsoft Learn Path. So I put a short link there. So if you're getting started with Dataverse for Teams, that path takes you through all the basics to creating your first app, bot, and workflow inside of Teams. If you want more information on the environments, I know there was a lot of questions about governance and security and how environments are managed. That's kind of your one-stop shop for all the information about how these Dataverse for Teams environments work. And then finally, if you want to browse and see what sample apps are out there and get some of the more details about those, that's a great link for that as well. And again, that is how you contact me, multiple ways to get a hold of me if you have any questions after this that we don't have time to get to. So I have a few minutes here. I want to see if there's any other questions. I do see one by Pete. Any idea when this will be available in GCC? That is a great question. I have not heard anything or saw anything on the roadmap or update on that when that will be available. But as soon as I do hear anything or get any update on that, I will make sure to tweet about it, post about it on LinkedIn to keep you updated on that. But I know this has been requested for a while to have this in GCC. I think that might be all the questions. If there's anything else, let me know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is all the questions. And any follow-up questions that you might have, I can pass along to April, let her go do her day job. But thank you so much, April. We always learn so much for you. And I know you have submitted a presentation for our admin workshop day. So we're really looking forward to that as we plan to set the schedule up in the next couple of weeks.
Yep, looking forward to it. See you there.
Okay,
Thanks.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
April. All right, Heather, are you all set?
Yeah, let me get everything set up.
Okay, great. So again, if you have any questions from our sponsor, Concurrency, or for April or Heather, throw them in the chat. We'll make sure to try to answer them in line. And then if we can't, we'll go do the research in the back end and try to throw the answer in as quick as we can. All right, all yours, Heather.
Perfect, thank you. I'll get my camera on here in just a moment. I was going to try and make sure I could track the questions if there's something I'm able to answer along the way.
Sure, and I can help moderate as well.
Great. Helps if I have a little light on so you can see me. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Severino. Happy to be here with you today. I know I've spoken to this user group once before, but if I haven't had the chance to meet you before, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I primarily focus on Office apps and services. I'm also a MVP for the same space. And I'm also a LinkedIn instructor. So happy to be here to help you understand what's changing with OneNote. What can you expect to get out of OneNote here in the near future? I have a few polls set up, and Michelle, I'm not sure if I'm able to launch that first poll or not. I was looking around here for it.
I can go ahead and launch.
Perfect. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and start with that first before I tell you what we're going to cover, because I'd like to know, where are you at with your note taking? How do you take notes today? It doesn't have to be OneNote. Just kind of want to find out from you on where you are with that. So the poll should be live now. You can type in any answer you want. I'll give you just a moment to put that in there. Is it pen and paper? Is it a Word document? Is it OneNote? Is it something else? Like Sherry's answer, I'm a OneNote junkie. I am too. I'm with you. Oh, we've got 10 responses so far. Great. I always like to ask this because I like to know, where are you coming from in what I'm going to be talking to you about? Are you already using OneNote? We know some of you are from the chat, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're using something else that's similar to OneNote. Oh, Sydney, you're not able to see the poll. Sorry, it should be in the chat area. You're welcome to type it in the chat area if you can't see it as well, if you're able to get to the chat area. All right, well, thanks everybody for your responses so far. We'll go ahead and share those out a little bit later and see where everyone was at. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm not sure if you've heard, but there are some changes coming to OneNote, and it's going to depend more around which application are you using. So we're going to start first with, sorry about that, it looks like it closed everything out. A little technical difficulties here. Let me flip this back around. All right, so we're going to start first with, well, it's because it was at the end of my slideshow, so you're going to get a little sneak preview here of everything else. So we're going to compare the apps first, kind of understand, if you're working with OneNote, which one are you working with? And why might you want to make a switch at some point here in the near future? I'm also going to share some note-taking best practices along the way and help you to understand how you can work with OneNote directly from Microsoft Teams. April was showing you a lot of great things that you can do directly in Teams, and I think that's always beneficial, whether you're supporting Teams as an administrator, if you're a trainer and you're helping to get others to adopt and use it, or if you're that end user that's using it to get the most productivity out of it. We tend to think of Teams as like the place for getting the teamwork done, right? The things that you're doing with other people around you, but there's also some great ways that you can take notes personally, those individual notes, maybe where you have your own private notebooks to kind of track your goals and track those to-dos and things that you have for that. And then I'll share some resources with you along the way. I've got a lot of great things I'm going to point to online, and I have all those links that I'll share with you in the chat area, and I'll also provide those to Michelle if she wants to post those somewhere as well. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into here. Now, originally I was going to talk to you today about automating with bots, connectors, and flows in Microsoft Teams, and we switched gears on that, so we have a different topic today. But I did want to point you to my LinkedIn Learning course if you're still wanting to kind of ramp up on that. This isn't building things in with low code like April was showing you. These are things that are ready and you can use out of the box with Microsoft Teams if your organization has allowed you to work with those. It's both Microsoft apps, bots, connectors, flows, as well as third-party apps, bots, and connectors that you can work with also. So just wanted to kind of point you there before we dive into what we're covering today. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what OneNote are you using? You might have this OneNote, and I've got another OneNote over here. You might have this OneNote. And when you go down and you look on your Windows taskbar, if you're working with a Windows PC, if you had both of these open, you would see two little purple notebook icons here that look very much the same. And if you're working in this, you might not really know which one you're working with. If you're an administrator or somebody in a support role, you probably know which one you're working with. And we do have another poll question if you want to kind of answer that too, to kind of let us know, where are you at with this? Do you know which app you're working with? Are you working with OneNote 2016? Are you working with the OneNote app? Is it OneNote for Mac? Is it OneNote for Windows 10? Is it the web app? Or is it the mobile app that you can work with on an Android or an iOS device? So would love to know that as well. We'll be sharing some of these results throughout the session today. And if you don't know, you can simply say, I don't know, not sure what I'm working with. I just work with what's on my computer, or I'm using something else. Maybe I'm not even using OneNote. The reason we're starting here, though, is I mentioned that there's some changes coming to OneNote in a few years, and it might be coming to your organization sooner, or you might get an invitation to make that change sooner. That change happens to be this OneNote for Windows 10 app. And you'll notice I have them side by side right now. So what I'm pointing to right now is the app that you can download from the store. It's a universal app. And then over here to the right, this is what's called the OneNote app. The former version of it was OneNote 2016. It's kind of like Prince, right? The artist formerly known as. That's how I kind of refer to this OneNote app. This is the latest and greatest desktop app. This OneNote for Windows 10 app, you'll see I'll bring this up for you now, will not be supported after October of 2025. I'm on this little campaign right now trying to get the word out to everybody to let them know. This app eventually is not going to receive updates anymore. It doesn't mean that you can't use it anymore. It's just not going to have the bugs and the security stuff and all of that patched for you. So at some point, if this is the app that you're using, or this is the app that your organization is supporting, you're going to need to switch back over to that OneNote app, the one that was formerly called OneNote 2016. Now, good news for you, you don't have to do anything today. At some point, you will get an invitation to be able to make that switch, and that would be the most seamless way for you to make that switch over to the OneNote app. And if you're an administrator, you might be going, but what if I want to decide when my organization is going to move over to that other app? They will be having something for you to help you with that. I've got a great article, a resource that has a lot of frequently asked questions and some of those answers. So there are going to be some things provided to help you make that switch as well. You'll have the choice of when you want to make that switch. If you're trying to decide, which app do I want to use at home on my personal computer, I'm going to help you understand some of the differences between these apps so that you can make that decision. My personal opinion is to go with the OneNote app because we know that that's going to be what's going to be supported in the future. We also know that it has more features. And the other great thing about this change that's happening is if there's a feature or there's features that are unique to this OneNote for Windows 10 app, Microsoft's doing its best to try and bring over those unique features, those more popular features, right? The ones that are used more to the OneNote app. So if there is something here that you really like and that's why you stay working in this app, let's hope. We don't know which ones, which features are going to be moved over. We don't know the timeline of when that's going to happen. From what the article said that was released, it's going to be sometime in the next year. That article was posted last August, right? So there could be some things happening fairly soon that you're going to see happen in that other app. So I see some chatter going on over here. Let me see if there's anything that we can answer for you.
You want me to throw the poll up?
Yeah, sure, please do.
Okay, great.
Or we got a poll up here now. Let's find out which app you're working with. we're going to take you through each of these, show you some best practices, some tips, share some things that I think will help you with those, just to kind of help you understand the differences between these apps and to kind of know what to expect as you start to move over if you're not in that OneNote app as well. So feel free to give a response on which OneNote app are you using. So far, 2016 is in the lead. Oh, it's tied with OneNote for Windows 10. I feel like we have a race going on here. Who's going to take the final spot here? Oh, we've got some Mac users in the house too. That's awesome. No love for the web app. I can't believe no one's using the web app. I like it. We've got a couple of people that have no idea what they're using for their OneNote note taking. Thanks everybody for responding so far. Awesome. Okay, so we know this is going out of support. If it's easier for you to remember when OneNote for Windows 10 is going out of support, it's the same time as Windows 10 operating system. So hand in hand, these are both in the same time frame for that October of 2025. So what are the main differences between these two that we've been comparing? You'll notice that if I bring this one back over here, see if I can make it snap a little smaller so we can compare it. You'll notice that we have some key differences. What I really liked about OneNote for Windows 10 is it looked somewhat similar to the web app, and maybe even more in line with like the mobile app if I was working with that on my tablet. On the left side, we have a way that we can hide the navigation and kind of bring that back in. We're able to see our notebooks here at the top, and then we have our sections and our pages. And over here in this app, and I'm going to go ahead and make this one bigger for now. This one, we have our tabs at the top as our navigation, and then our pages running down the side. So there are some slight differences with the navigation of this. All of the Office apps are getting a visual refresh, and so I will be providing a link for that too if you want to kind of read up more on what's changing with the look of all these apps. You'll notice that in this newer app for OneNote, one of the things that's already happened is how they've brought search right up here to the top to be able to search for all of the relevant information or even the things that you want to work with in this app. So I think that's a great addition or change that has already happened with this app. Where it really differs is this app allows you to work with both local notebooks and cloud notebooks. And when you were working with OneNote for Windows 10, all of your notebooks had to be in the cloud. If you already had a notebook created and you opened that, you'd be prompted to upload that to your OneDrive document library. So it had to be a cloud notebook in order for you to work with it in that app. So I think one of the benefits of going back to supporting this app, and this is going to be the app long term, is that it does still support local notebooks. I know a lot of us are like, why would I want to do that? I like having it backed up in the cloud, but there are certain use case scenarios with some end users that I've talked to where they have a really specific need to have that local notebook. I like to refer to it as the Microsoft OneNote team does, which is a cloud notebook is a happy notebook, right? We know it's always backed up. We know it's synced. We've always got our information. We can access it from anywhere that we want. So we have both options if you're going to be working in this application. One of the other things that I like about this application is it does have more robust capabilities. One of the things, and Sherry's in here with me, she'll know, she's heard me say this so many times before, I like having my page templates. If you're newer to note taking or you kind of feel like, I don't really have a good flow or way to organize my notes on the page templates can help you with that. And so that's one of the things that the OneNote for Windows 10 app didn't have. And it was always the reason that I still was sitting in this app most of my time to be able to work with some of those more power note taker types of tools that are available to us. And so if you've not checked these out yet, I encourage you to do that. It's on the insert ribbon here, and it's over here in page templates. You'll notice that I have some in my list already because I have been working with these, but if you've not, you'll go to page templates to get to those. And they've got several categories over here for you to be able to work with. And if you want to be able to kind of organize your to-do list, you've got some planner ones here you can work with. You also have decorative ones. So if this is something that's going to be maybe for like your journaling at home, books that you've read, maybe tracking your exercise or your health, whatever it might be, you might go with one of these. For the academia world, for schools and stuff, all sorts of great stuff here. So I'm just going to pick one to show you, and then I'll show you one that I kind of made on the fly real quick before we started here today. So I'm going to go with this simple meeting notes one. And once I pick that, it adds it to the section that I'm currently in, which is this OneNote announcement. And we've got some containers here where I can start typing in the agenda, the attendees, action items, whatever I want to add in here. Now I can customize this, so I can do things like right click and say that I don't want this picture to be the background. That then lets me select this picture and get rid of it. So I could bring in a new picture, paste in a new picture, right click, set it as the background, and make that the page background so that I can write on top of it, take notes on top of it. Once you make all those customizations, you can save that as your own template, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a minute. So these are all the templates that come with the OneNote apps. I'm going to close out of this for now. I'm going to take us back over here to the UG meeting section that I have set up here. And you'll notice down here that I have one of these templates that I started setting up. And also I've added the Minnesota M365 logo. I've added the sponsors down here at the bottom. I've got an area here for my checklist that I can start typing in all of the things that, that I want to know about. And there was something I liked that April was mentioning, so I'll put that one in here about message actions. I can start adding those things in, and once I'm done, check them off once I'm done. So if you have something like this and you want to turn it into your own template after you've customized it, like I've done here, you can go back to that same area, page templates, and down here at the bottom, once you've built your page out the way you want, you can save it. And I'm just going to call it MN365. And if I check this box to set it as the default template for new pages and save it, now if you notice here at the top of the templates area, I have this My Templates. And here's the template that we just created. So at any time I can come back and customize it, delete it if I don't need it anymore, whatever I want to do. But I don't have to come back to this template area and pick it every time I want to have a new page added to this section. So watch what happens now when I click Add Page. It's using that same template. So for consistency and kind of to automate your note taking, this is a great thing that you can do. You can create your own page templates for all sorts of things, whether it has to do with decisions, whether it has to do with instructions, it has to do with maybe a project kickoff or what you do for your status meetings, right? Those things tend to be organized in the same types of sections within your notebook. So why not create a template that every time Add Page is used, it uses that template. It's also great if this is a shared notebook where you have a lot of people and you want to make sure that they're consistently using the same format. You know where to go to find that information. Where are action items? Where are decisions? Where are the things that we didn't get to that we need to cover in the next meeting? Those types of things. So I hope you like that little tip if that's not something that you've seen before, and that can be really helpful. Now, if I pop back on over to this other section, you'll notice when I select Add Page, it's just an empty page. And that is the default state when you're adding pages in a notebook, unless you've gone in and created a page template and you've specified that you want to use that to be the default page for that section.
Heather, do you mind if we answer just a couple questions in the chat?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Great. Let's see, they're coming in quick. So I'll first start off with, let's see, what's the difference between the search box at the top center and the one on the right?
Yeah, and it was a little confusing to me when they first did this, because why do we have two search boxes? What's different here? So this search box, you'll notice this is kind of like that, tell me what you want to do, if you've seen that in your other Office applications. So if I needed to know how to insert a table, notice as I'm typing it in, it's showing me a list of actions. So instead of me having to hunt around all the ribbons, if I don't remember which ribbon tab is insert table in, I can type just a similar phrase. It's kind of like what April was saying before. It understands conversational phrases, so I might not have exactly the right feature name, and it'll bring it right to you in this menu, which I think is great. It will also find if there is something that matches within the document, and it will give you help. Now, the find part. If you want better results for finding your notes within your notebooks, then I recommend that you go over here to this search. And the reason I recommend this one is you'll notice there's a keyboard shortcut here called Control-E. This is to search across your entire notebook. Notice down here that it has a check mark. So that's the default setting. If I were to search across this entire notebook for some specific word, it's going to show me all of the matches within that pane. If I want to refine those results, because over time this could be a really large notebook, right? Then I could say, okay, I want to not just search all notebooks, but I want to search just this notebook, just this section group, just this section, or even this page. And that Control-F keyboard shortcut that we might be using already in other Office applications and in our web browser, it also works here, but it refines it to only searching for the contents of the current page that is in view. So I hope that that helps. If you do make a change on here, like to say this section, then you can go back in here and you can set the scope as the default. So if there's something you're always going in and choosing that, just set it as the default. I think that will help you. To kind of expand on that, because I think that this might be useful as well, you can also search for text within your images. So this is a screen clipping down here at the bottom that I took from the page with the current sponsors. But if I were to search for something, we'll see if it'll work in here. I'm not sure of the settings I have on this right now, but let's say that we're searching for RBA. Notice how it highlighted RBA in this image. So it does have text recognition, that OCR type of capability. That's turned on by default within this OneNote application. And I think that that is really huge, that it might not be typed text, right? It might be something that's in a picture of a sign that you took or in a sponsor logo like we have here. It will also pull back results in the search here if you're searching recorded audio or recorded video that you have recorded from OneNote here that is embedded within the page. So spoken words, it's able to find matches for those also. It will be dependent though, of course, on which languages you have set up to be supported within the OneNote application. And a lot of that stuff you can customize by going to the File tab and then going in here to Options. You'll notice that you have a lot of audio and video settings in here, but then you have this language section that you'll want to make sure you configure if you're speaking different languages, maybe not just one language. I hope that probably is more than what you needed to know. So I'll kick it back to you, Michelle.
Yeah, no, that was great. And they're just flooding in.
Great.
I'll pick another one from Jason. Are they going to update the UI on the 2016 version to look more like the Win 10 version?
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead. Keep going if there's more.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so let me point you over here, and I'll put the link for this in the chat area as well. Let's see. So this article is what I was mentioning before that really gets into a lot of details of what's happening as far as OneNote from Windows 10 making that switch over, when you'll get the in-app invite, or if you're an admin, like all of those things. And in here at the bottom, there's a great FAQ answer area here that has a link to the difference between the versions. So like if you don't know which version you're using still, even with me showing you some of these, I know it's hard to tell sometimes. This walks you through like what are the differences between that, how to download the latest OneNote app, which replaced OneNote 2016. So it still is free as a separate download if you don't have an Office 365 subscription. When you download the desktop apps with your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription, it is included now with that suite of applications. So that would be the one you would be getting as the OneNote app. To the question about what is it going to look like, there's a great link in here. Let me see if I can find it, that has a link to Visual Refresh. So this, and I'll put both of these in the chat area for you. This has a mock-up of what these apps are intended to look like. So this is the vision that Microsoft has for refreshing these apps. And here they're showing you Word, PowerPoint, and Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And then if we scroll on down, I'm trying to remember, I'm not sure if they have one in here for OneNote. But I'll put this link in there, and I think that that will help give you a little more insight as to where they're at. I don't exactly know how much OneNote is going to get more of this visual refresh or not. We'll kind of have to wait and see, but from this article, you'll at least have a good idea of what they're hoping to do.
And do you know if custom tags will be portable?
Wouldn't that be great, right? That was that was my other thing about OneNote for Windows 10, that I'm like, I like to have my custom tags, but I would like to, if I have this as a shared notebook, that everybody else is working with the same named tags, right? So I don't know. Let me do some research on that and see what I can find out. And then I'll follow up with Michelle later to see if we can get that answered out to you.
Yeah, and we can always, keep on continuing this conversation in the chat far after the meeting is closed, and ask any follow-up or answer any follow-up questions. There's a good one from Pete around, if you create a page template in a Teams notebook, will all team members have access to that template?
Yeah, that's another one that, let me pull up my OneNote. I think it's over here on my other screen real quick here. That is another one. I don't believe that I think it is just your personal template.
I think so too. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you create like an Excel template and you save it, it goes into that personal area, or a Word template. There is a way in some of the Office applications that you can make that a global type of a template, I believe. But I don't know for OneNote how that would work for that page. It's a great question. Like a little workaround, and again, I'll research on this one too and see what I can find as far as the best way to do this. But a workaround for you would be that you could push this out, like save the page, like email the page, or when you come over here to the share or export, let's see, I think export would be what we would want. You could export the page and just have it as this .1 file and have it somewhere that everybody could use it. But that's a little clunky, I think, because then they still have to kind of bring it into the notebook. So let me do some research on that and see what would be the best way to make that available, especially if we're considering working with cloud libraries, because that's another tricky one too, as far as how you have to, if you're having like a notebook package, how you have to unpack that, essentially unzip it. So there's some little things to think about with those file types, but I'll see what I can find out for you.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of them. Just, conversations around the template notebook. Sherry will share it. Hopefully she'll share it here. And I think all templates are personal. I will check in the background if they are global. Pete's saying he wishes that they were in the org asset library to manage them and just pull them in. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could probably create a SharePoint list with all your templates that people can just use. Throw it in a tab in Teams. Let's see, Terry's asking, does new version enable me to assign tasks? So I guess maybe we'll flip or move to kind of integration and what will be integrated.
Yeah, so a couple of the really popular ones that have been integrated for a while with this, and you might already be doing some of these things. So here in this version, and it is available in OneNote for Windows 10 as well, is we have the capability to be able to bring in meeting details. So I could go here and take a look at my meetings that are coming up today and then bring it in that way. I'm going to show you how to do it as well in the Windows 10 app, because it is in a bit of a different location. So in the Windows 10 app, it's not on the home ribbon, it's in the insert ribbon. So if you're working with this, let's say that I'm here in meetings and I want to bring some stuff into this section. So if I come on over to meeting details, you will need to sign in. If you've not used this before, you will need to sign in with your Office 365 account, whether that's your personal, your school, or your work account. And once you do, it will show you things that are coming up. So if I pick this meeting that's happening today, it pulls all the details into the page. So that is a great integration. This integration, if there were participants, the way I copied this in, it's not listing them, but it would have the participants and it'd have the check boxes for you to check off who attended if you do need to capture that attendance. And it gives you a place for notes. I usually like to call this like my action items, decisions, whatever you want to have, that you can start putting those things into. And I saw somebody mention how much they like check boxes, I think, in here earlier. So, we can even use one of our little to-do tags and start building a list here for that. So that's a great integration that you have. To the question about assigning tasks, there is a way that you can do that. So let's say that I've got this note here and it's that someone needs to approve the budget and I want to assign that. So when I select that, you'll notice here in this version, I do have a way to work with tags, but I don't necessarily have a way to assign that to someone. But if I come on back over to the other version, so let me grab that app that's over here. And if I come on over to this and I select Approve Budget, in the OneNote app, so this is the one that used to be called OneNote 2016, if we come up here to the home ribbon, you'll notice over here next to our tags. So these are all of the tags, and you might have some custom tags you've created in here, but we don't want a tag, we want an Outlook task. Now the trick to this one is that you don't want to assign it as something that's going to be due on a specific date, like today, tomorrow, this week. You want to do custom. By selecting custom, what it's going to do is it's going to open it up as a task in your Outlook, where you can then define the date that it's going to be due, the importance, who you're assigning it to. So you can type in your colleague's name, and when you're done, when you save it, it sends off that notification that you've assigned that task to them, and it shows up in their to-do area of their Outlook application. Now on this computer that I'm working on, I don't have the Outlook desktop client configured with this account, so I can't show you the rest of the process, but hopefully I've described it well enough that you have that capability. You've had that capability for a while within this OneNote application. As far as just being able to right click on something or do the assignment of it right from this container, we don't have that. I've been wishing for something like that for a long time. I've also been wishing for it to have a better way for it to integrate with my to-do and my planner tasks and those kinds of things. So lots of things on my wish list related to that that's not quite there, but we've got that replacement for user voice. I say get out there and share your ideas and let everybody know that you're looking for those kinds of things, and hopefully the product team can make it happen. Right, so Tony, to your question, it's not a to-do task. It's they're calling it to-dos now in Outlook, so there's a little bit of confusion between that to-do app that is separate from that's part of Microsoft 365. It does just get into your regular tasks list, but it doesn't get into one of those specific lists that you've set up in the to-do app. So I've seen a screenshot here. When right-clicking a meeting in Outlook, yeah, so you can do your meeting notes right from Outlook as well. So if you already are there in your calendar with your meeting notes open, you can actually send them out and choose which notebook, which section, what page you want it to go to, and do it that way also. I think that might be why you posted that, but let me know if there was something you had a question on related to that screenshot. Okay, so those are just like a few of the things that I love to be able to do no matter which desktop app you're working with. I do want to kind of point out a couple of things that I think might be beneficial to you. Since nobody's giving much love to the web app, we're going to go to the web app, and I want to show you something out here that I like. Now, some of these things you can also do in the mobile app as well. So one of the things that I like to do in this one is you'll notice on the home ribbon over here, this microphone, this is dictate, and it's different than an audio recording or a video recording where you're using the microphone in the desktop app that I was pointing out earlier. The great thing about this is there's a lot of languages that are being supported, and they're constantly adding additional languages that they're testing out. So you can see all of the ones that are in preview right now. So if you're speaking in a different language than what it's set to, you'll want to make that choice before you start talking into the microphone. I'm going to leave mine set to English for now. I'm going to turn it on. Now everything that I'm saying should be typed on the screen, period. Next sentence. No, it didn't like that, period. You get the idea. And I'm going to turn it off. So it does a pretty good job at picking up what you're saying. And this is one of those multitasker productivity hacks that I like to refer to them as. And so that's maybe you are reviewing something and you just need to get your thoughts on paper. It's a great way for you to be able to do that. Or there's a few different things that you have going on and you think it's just quicker for you to jot down those ideas by just having that free flow of while you're thinking of it, of getting it onto the paper. So this is something that's included in a lot of the Office apps now, but it was really first in the OneNote app before you saw it start popping up in Word and some of the other apps, but it works the same way across the entire Office suite where it's available. All right, so that's one of the things that I like here in the web app. There's of course things like tags that we were mentioning, but you don't necessarily have the way to make your custom tags, but a lot of the same functionality you'll have out here. Here you'll notice that we have that tell me just like we had in the desktop app when we had the question come up about search. So I figured next, let's go to Teams and kind of round out this conversation with what do you want to know, or what do you maybe not know about what you can do in Teams. So we're going to come on over here. And when you think about Teams, I mentioned before, like we probably all think about this being the hub for getting that project work done, the hub for having collaboration on files, and a way for us to have communications that are persistent, that we can always go back and find out what's been happening in that channel of that team, or a great little workspace that's less formal for us to have like that one-to-one chat and work on files, or a small group chat that we have going on. And we think about a lot of those things, but I think what a lot of folks are forgetting is there's a lot more things to get everybody in here and making this that central hub for getting work done or for communicating and collaborating beyond the Teams area. And a lot of those can be apps that are also available to you here. So when you think about the time that we spend every day switching from this app to that app, and then the context switching that happens, well, what happens when you do that? When you go over to that app to find that note or to take that note and you come back, then you have to kind of regroup where you were, what were you working on, remembering what you were working on, the time it takes to kind of get back into that workflow or that groove. And so I think that if you start to incorporate OneNote into Teams, it can help you both with your personal individual work as well as that team group type of work. And I like to equate this to something you may have already heard before that has to do with SharePoint and OneDrive. So when we think of our OneDrive document library, they usually refer to that as the me files. And it's the me files because it's my files until I choose to share them out with other people, right? I create the file, I upload the file, I'm the owner, nobody else has access to it until I share it with them. And then we have what are known as the we files. And those are the files that reside in SharePoint, or as we know, in Teams, because they're really in SharePoint. So we have those we files. Well, think of your Teams workspace as the same thing. We have a me area for my individual work that I'm doing, and we have a we area for all that teamwork that's happening there as well. And so over here on the rail, you'll notice that I have this OneNote app pinned here. Now, if I didn't have it pinned there, if I go to the ellipses here, this will take me to and show me all the apps that are available to me within my organization. Now, of course, yours might differ depending on which things you're allowing or which things you've added in. But the very first one here is OneNote. And so when I bring that in, it shows on the navigation rail now. And if I wait for it here to load, what we'll see here at the top are different tabs. And it's going to take me first to my personal notebook, where I'm able to see all of the information, and I'm even able to expand it and navigate around, maybe even go to a different notebook like this notebook that we were just working in. This is the OneNote web app. And so when I asked earlier, how many of you are working in OneNote for the web? If you're already working in it here in Teams, it's the web app. You're working in the web app. So all of the functionality you have in the web app, you have available to you right here to be able to use. So think about that context switching, the time that you're taking to go from whether you're working in the mobile version of Teams or the web version of Teams like I am here, or the desktop version of Teams, that you can get right to all of your notebooks from that app. You don't have to go to the OneNote desktop app or to the web app or to any other type of OneNote app to get to that. Take your notes, access notes, whatever you need to do. So this is a great resource for you to have. Now, I will tell you, when I navigate away from OneNote now, it disappears from the rail. So anytime you add something to this, while it looks like it's there on the rail, it's going to disappear unless you right-click and choose to pin it. Of course, we can rearrange the order of these. We can have so many more things there on the rail as well. Now, the other way that you can work with OneNote in Teams is if we go to a team, and I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and just create a new team here. So we'll create one from scratch. Whenever you create a new team, there are some other artifacts, if you will, that get generated at the same time. So behind the scenes, we know there's a SharePoint site that gets created, a team SharePoint site, and that there's a document library there, and that's where all the files are going to be hosted for each of the channels that are part of that team. But there's also, I'm going to skip this part of adding somebody, there's also a OneNote notebook that gets created that's already connected to this team. So one of the very first things that I always like to make sure everyone knows is you don't have to create a new notebook if you want to have a place for everybody to track their notes for their meetings, for decisions, for resources, for projects or a program or whatever your notebook and your team is about. So with this one that we just created, if we go here to the top and we go to the plus sign, you'll notice at the very top of the list is OneNote. When I select this, it's going to show me the notebook that comes with the team. It's also going to show me all the other notebooks that I have permissions to. So you can see some of the other notebooks for things that I've recently been speaking to or about. But here's the one that comes with the team. Now the arrow next to it is going to show us a way to start creating new sections. So you don't have to add this notebook to the channel and then go in and start creating all the sections if you're going to give it some kind of organization. You can do that right from here. So these section names can be anything you want them to be. They can match the names of the channels. They can be something different if you want. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and just click right in this area. And I'm going to just say that this is our user group meetings. Press enter, and it's creating the section. Didn't like that name for some reason. That's all right. We'll just close out of it. We'll save it for now. We can always add it later. Now, it says there's already something with this name, so let's just pick it again. I've seen this bug happen before in this tenant that I have, so let's see what it's doing. There we go. You should not have that experience. It should allow you to give the section a name and then save it, and it will look like this. So here at the top of the channel, this is the notebook that was with the team. With the drop-down arrow next to it, we of course can rename it if we want. We can always remove it if we no longer need this notebook. Now, what we're looking at here is again the web app. So I'm going to go ahead and show the navigation. So here's the notebook that is part of this team. Oh, that's why. Never mind. This is the one that I created, my personal one. I'm sorry, I'm confusing you all instead of, I can't give it the same name as another notebook that I have. So we should have been able to pick the other notebook and do everything we wanted. So I just added this personal notebook. So let me show you a different example. I think you get the idea. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can hear. There's someone mowing their lawn outside, so that's had me a bit distracted. So this is the one that I wanted to add. This is the default team notebook, and I think there's some chat going on. You might have been trying to tell me that in the chat. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So here's where we can create our new section, type in what we want to call it, add that section. Now we shouldn't get any errors. Hopefully it'll work. Yes, perfect. There's our section as the default. I do want it to post in the channel about this tab, and I'll show you why here in a minute. So once I save it, this is the one I wanted. Let's get rid of the personal one that we were working with before, so there's no confusion. And so now this is the notebook that everybody that is an owner, a member of this team, has access to this notebook, can access the notes and take notes in it. Now over here in the post area, what I'd like to point out is notice right here. This is a notification that was posted automatically because that box was checked as we were setting this notebook up in this channel. For awareness, it's letting everyone know there's something new here you may want to go check out. And in case you haven't noticed that tab at the top called Meetings, if you click right here, it's going to take you directly to that notebook. Now, when we set up that section, it's not that we were just creating a section within the notebook that we were adding as a tab here. We were saying make this the default location that it goes to. So think of how that can save time for people to find the notes that they need or to go to the right place to take the notes that they need to about the work that's happening in that channel. We're taking them directly to that specific section of the notebook. And right from in here, we of course can add more sections if we want to. And then in the other channels of that team, we don't have any other channels set up, but let's say that we had another channel that has to do with maybe planning, maybe the board, maybe the admin event that's coming up, whatever it might be. We can set up whatever tab name is appropriate and have that as the default location that it will take them to if they're accessing it in that channel. So notice in this planning channel, we don't have a tab up here for the notebook. We of course can go back and add it in. We'll pick it. We can give another tab name here. We'll give it a section. We'll call it board. This is planning, but I'm just going to put board in here for the name. We'll save it. And now we're adding that as a tab within that channel. So a great way for you to start to build a structure. And also, you know, if they expect to see this in each of the, I'm just going to back out of this one for now. If they expect to see this in each of the team channels, they kind of know what to look for at the top, right? This is where I can go to get the notes, or this is where I can go to get these instructions. This is where I need to go when I'm having that meeting and access the notes or whatever I'm doing. This, of course, is different than Wiki. Wiki is the note-taking tool that you would use in your meetings, but this is a way, if it works better for you than Wiki, that you could set it up here when you're having those meetings. Everybody knows to go there for taking those notes, or if they missed the meeting, to go there to find those notes that they've missed. Do we have any other questions coming in?
Yeah, there's one on, are they going to fix that annoying thing with OneNote in Teams where it doesn't automatically show the navigation when you click on a tab linking to a OneNote?
So was that when you're in like when you're clicking on something like this, like a link, that it doesn't show it to you? This where it's got the, I'm thinking your question is where the navigation's hidden.
I mean, I would prefer how it is designed because else I don't really want to see my navigation if I want to jump right into writing meeting notes, but you know.
Yep. and I'm like you, Michelle, but I know when I first looked at this, I'm like, well, where are my sections and my pages? So it's to me, it is for like a new user. It's not as intuitive to know that this is what you have to click on to get to the navigation. So yeah, it's a good point. I've not
Yeah.
heard anything about that, but I can check and see if that has been suggested and maybe where it's at in the process. But yeah, I could see that there's a need for both. Maybe a way to set which default setting you want it to be, at least, maybe.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a smaller percentage that needs to go back into something before they start something, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, obviously we don't want to have that many clicks to,
Yeah.
you know, like decision points on you want this, you want that, but having a default would be great.
Yeah.
So there is another question on back when you were in the web app, how do you get a global search to work on the web app?
So in the web app, you do have over here this search, which is just below the show and hide navigation. And so you'll notice that you can search either the section or the page, but you can't search an entire notebook or all notebooks if that's what the question was referring to.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're doing a lot of things in the search space. There's another question that came in around, you know, having users be confused about the top search box in Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think that goes also with Viva Connections, the top search box, kind of what we're trying to do in that space. So they're just saying that they do have users that are confused around where is the search for OneNote versus the Teams top universal search bar.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The other day there was somebody mentioning to me that they had done a search up here and they were finding search results within the notebooks. And I was like, huh, I'll have to try that and see what I'm getting, because I'm like, are you sure you were searching there instead of the search here? But maybe it is possible, if it is a notebook that resides in a team, that you would still be able to find content throughout the notebook. So it's worth a try to see what you get as results with this top search box.
Yeah, and I think either it came out or it's coming out where you do get the search results that have the filtered things that you're used to in SharePoint, so you can see messages, files, people. So I could see that being a result under files.
Yeah, that's my thoughts too. All right, so I did have a couple other little tips I wanted to share with you. Just a couple of my favorite things that hopefully will encourage you to check out the desktop app if you're not working with this app yet. Now, this is something I'm going to show you in the OneNote app. I have a screenshot, if I can recall where I put it. It's right here. So here's the agenda for today's meeting. And what I'd like to show you with this one is, imagine you have a screen clipping or a screenshot that somebody has put into the notebook. Maybe this is a shared notebook, and you can't go back to that page to get that content again, but you don't need the screenshot. You just need the text out of that screenshot, right? So anything that you have that has text in it, like this that you see here, if you right click on it, there's a couple of different things that you can do with this. So one of these is to make this text in the image searchable. So remember when we did that search earlier to answer a question and I said, oh, by the way, it will search for text within your images. That's because the default setting is that this is enabled. And if it's not working for you, this is where you'll want to go to check that setting and make sure that it's not set to disabled. The thing that I really like about this is if I want to select the text from this image, with that right click, we can do that. And look what it does. It highlights everywhere that it finds the text in here. And then I can copy that text to the clipboard of my device. And I'm going to go out here to a new page just to show you. Well, let me go back to this page. I'll put it right next to it so you can see the difference between it. And I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut Control-V to paste it in. And look at that. It's in a text container that I can now format, do whatever I need to, and I saved all the time of typing that in if I didn't have the capability to do that. The other great thing I like about this is the formatting of it, right? It didn't have some wonky formatting that it picked up from the way that it was laid out within this image. So I'm hoping that that's something that will help you in the future if you have maybe a PDF, some kind of an image, something else where you're not able to capture the text easily from it, just a different way that you can go about doing that. And even if it's not needed here for this notebook, with it copied to your clipboard, you can go paste it in your PowerPoint presentation, in an email, in a Teams chat, wherever you need to reuse that text. So that's one of my favorite things. One of my other favorite things happens to be Edge browser based. So if you are a fan of the Edge browser, one of the things that I like about this and we'll use this article as our reference here, is if you go to the Settings and More menu, and then if we go to the Web Capture, you get this web capture, and I can either do a full page where it'll allow you to select the full page, or I'm just going to do an area, and I'm just going to grab this area. Now, once I'm done, I can copy it to the clipboard and then go paste it wherever I want. Or if I want to mark it up, and this is something that I used to really like having in the Internet Explorer browser, and then I'm like, well, what happened? Where is it in Edge? This is the replacement for it if you used the similar capability there. So with markup, it gives you inking. So if there's something that I want to mark up, I can choose my ink, I can choose the thickness, and then I can go out and I can mark this up. Got your eraser, you've got your touch enabled to turn on or off, and then once you're done, you can either save this, you can add it to a collection, or if we go to the ellipses, we can either copy it or we can share it. With the share menu, if you're working with OneNote for Windows 10, you can share this directly to a specific notebook and section and do it that way. If you're not and you're working with the OneNote app, then of course you'll want to just copy it to your clipboard and then go paste it into whatever area you're working with in your OneNote app, or even the web app. You could paste it in that way as well. So those are just a couple of other quick things that are favorite things that I like working with that I think are great time savers, or just give you a lot more power with your note taking. So with that, I think I'll hand it on over to Michelle. I think we've just got a couple minutes left for maybe any final questions that you have.
Yeah, let me share. There's another question in here that I think everybody gets a little kind of confused about. Is the first one is, I noticed the Teams notebook is stored under the SharePoint Online Site Assets library instead of a document library. And if I wanted to move an existing notebook to a team, should I move it into the Site Assets too, or would you move it to the general, or not the general, but the channel document library folder?
Yes, that's another great question. I know I have seen some instructions out there on a best way to move that. So how about if I follow up on that as well, and I'll try and get those posted in the chat, and also follow up with Michelle to see what we have as a resource for you, because there is not a trickiness, but there is a certain way that you should do it and not do it. And Sherry's saying she agrees with why it's in Site Assets, that you always create a notebooks library and move them all there. Yeah. I see a question from Tony about, is Snip in Edge any better, different than Snip in Windows 10? And is when you're saying that, Tony, are you meaning like the snipping tool that comes with Windows 10? The snipping tool does give you more capabilities for like annotations, and then how do you want to save the file and those types of things than you would have with this extension in the browser.
Yeah, I have my Windows 10. I have my print screen key mapped to that, and so it's so much quicker. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a use case when I would revert to the Edge tool instead of just the Windows 10 one.
I hear you. It's hard when you've got that muscle memory and you've got everything programmed the way you want.
So one last question, and then I'll throw up the last poll for you, Heather. So I am curious if you have any sneak peek or information that you can elaborate further on our next month's topic, which is Microsoft Loop.
Microsoft Loop. I don't think I do. But I wanted to, let me see if this is, I had an article here. Where was it? This one, but I don't think this has to do with Loop. I think this is more around Fluid. And this is one that I'll put in the chat as well. There's some interesting things in here with hybrid meetings and some other things that sounded pretty interesting. And this is something that I think that was from last June, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't have anything directly about Loop, but I think Loop is mentioned in this article. So it does sound like there's some exciting stuff coming out. Wish I had more, Michelle.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I haven't seen it yet, but I have heard rumors around Loop being added as components inside of OneNote one day soon.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I thought I read something recently like that it's starting to roll out in certain tenants or something. So I'm excited to see it.
Yep. We'll have it a great overview next month at our next meeting, talking about the roadmap and the first roadmap being that you can add loop components into your Microsoft Teams chat as a first, and then we'll just keep rolling it out in various waves.
Nice. I'll try and be at that meeting.
All right, I threw up the poll there, so if you want to go ahead and add any cool things that you've learned today.
Yeah, I would love to know what your favorite thing was, if you had a favorite feature or if it was the news about OneNote for Windows 10 or something else. Thanks, Michelle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. I'm trying to find my 5-year anniversary Teams background. So if you saw in the chat, happy birthday to Microsoft Teams. And there are some new backgrounds to help celebrate. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that on too while everybody's voting.
How apropos that everything was about Teams today.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.